The number clears at 11:47 on a Wednesday morning, and you are standing in the cereal aisle of a grocery store, holding a box of oats that costs $4.39. Your phone buzzes in your pocket. You already know what it is. You have been watching this number for 10 years. You pull the phone out. You look at the screen. $1,100,000. The notification sits there for 3 seconds. Then it disappears. You put the phone back in your pocket. You put the oats in the cart. The woman next to you is comparing 2 yogurt brands. She holds one in each hand. She does not look up. Nobody in this aisle knows what just happened. Nobody in this store knows. Nobody in this parking lot, this city, this state. Not one person knows. The fluorescent lights above you hum the same way they hummed 11 years ago when you shopped at this same store with $214 in your account and a card you were afraid to swipe. The lights do not sound different today. The store does not feel different. The oats cost $4.39. You walk to the next aisle. You pick up dish soap. You check the price. You put it in the cart. And here is the thing nobody tells you about the moment you have been building toward for a decade. It does not feel like a moment at all. You were 24 years old, and you were living in Cincinnati in an apartment on Colerain Avenue with 2 other people and a window that did not close all the way. Darnell had the room next to yours. He was funny in the way that people are funny when they have decided not to be sad about things. He was always broke. He was always happy. He had a Bluetooth speaker he carried from room to room, and he never once talked about money except to say he did not have any. And he said it the way you say the weather is cold. Just a fact. Not a problem. Your salary was $28,400 a year at a logistics company in a business park off I-75 that nobody you went to school with had ever heard of. You drove a 2009 Corolla with a slow leak in the back left tire. You filled it every 4 days at the BP on the corner. You knew the exact cost. $1.80 worth of air every 4 days. You knew the exact cost of everything. Not because you were careful by nature. Because you were scared. There is a difference. Careful people make systems. Scared people make lists. You made a list. It was a spiral notebook with a blue cover. College ruled. You bought it at a Walgreens for $1.29, and you wrote down every dollar you spent in it. Not an app. A notebook. Apps felt like something people with money used. People who were tracking progress. You were not tracking progress. You were tracking damage. Every night before you went to sleep you wrote the number. What came in? What went out? What was left? Most nights the number left was somewhere between $180 and $340. That was your cushion. That was the space between you and a problem you could not fix. Your mother Sandra called every Sunday at 7 p.m. She never asked about money directly. She asked if you were eating enough. She asked if you were sleeping. She asked if you had made any friends at the new job. You told her yes to all 3 even when the answer to the first one was not exactly. There were weeks you ate rice and canned beans 4 nights in a row, not because you were trying to save money, but because that was what $40 of groceries looked like when you were also paying $387 a month for your share of the rent and $194 for your car insurance and $128 for the student loan that felt like it would never move. You were not poor. That is the thing that is hard to explain. You were not poor. You could pay your bills. You just could not breathe. There is a specific kind of life that exists between not poor and okay. Between keeping the lights on and feeling like the lights are actually yours. You lived in that space for 2 years before anything changed. Not 2 dramatic years. 2 quiet years. 2 years of the notebook and the Sunday calls and Darnell's Bluetooth speaker and the tire that leaked. And then one Tuesday in February you sat on the edge of your bed and you opened the cracked Dell laptop and you read something that took you 11 minutes to read, and you closed the laptop, and you did not move for a while. You had just learned what a low-cost index fund was. It did not feel like anything at the time. It felt like information, like a fact you had just added to a list. But something had shifted that you would not be able to name for another 10 years. You went to work the next morning. You filled the tire. You wrote the number in the notebook. But something had changed in the calculation. You did not tell Darnell. You did not tell Sandra. You did not tell anyone at work. You did not post anything. You did not talk about it at the kitchen table or in the parking lot or anywhere. You opened a brokerage account on a Thursday night in March, sitting on your bed with the window that did not close all the way, letting in cold air from outside, and you set up an automatic transfer of $600 a month. And then you closed the laptop and you went to sleep. That was it. That was the whole thing. $600. Every month. Automated. Gone before you could think about it. The first month it happened, you checked the account 4 times in one day. The second month you checked it twice. By the 6th month you checked it once, on the day the transfer cleared. And then you closed the app and went back to whatever you were doing. The first year you put in $7,200. It looked like nothing. It felt like nothing. You were 26 years old, and you had $7,200 in an account and $214 in checking, and a tire that still leaked, and nothing in your life looked any different than it did before. You stayed in the apartment on Colerain Avenue. This is the part that is hard to explain to people later. Not that you stayed, but why? It was not because you could not afford to leave. By year 3 you could have left. You could have moved into a 1-bedroom closer to downtown. You could have paid $1,100 a month and had your own space and a window that closed. You did not. You paid $740 and you stayed. While Karen Briggs from HR forwarded you links about side hustles because she thought you were struggling. While Tom Valles in accounting drove a brand new $38,000 truck into the parking lot on a Tuesday in October and stood next to it for 20 minutes waiting for someone to ask about it. Someone did. You did not. Tom asked you once why you were still driving the old Civic. You told him you liked it. He looked at you the way people look at someone they feel sorry for. You let him. Karen meant well. She sent you an article once about driving for a delivery app on weekends. She attached a note that said she thought it might help. You thanked her. You did not tell her that the account was at $94,000 by then. You did not tell her anything. You just thanked her and closed the email and went back to your lunch, which you were eating at your desk because you had eaten lunch at your desk every single workday for 4 years. Not because you were told to. Not because anyone was watching. Because lunch outside cost between $9 and $14 and lunch at your desk cost nothing, and the difference over a year was $1,200, and $1,200 was 2 months of transfers, and 2 months of transfers in your 30s became something you could not yet calculate, but you knew it was real. This is what the invisible middle looks like. It does not look like discipline. It does not look like anything. It looks like a man eating a sandwich at his desk while everyone else goes to the taco place on the corner. It looks like a 2013 Civic in a parking lot full of newer cars. It looks like staying in an apartment 1 more year. And then 1 more year after that. Darnell moved out in year 4. He got a girlfriend. They got a place together in Covington across the river. He texted you a photo of the new apartment. It was nice. Open kitchen. Big windows. You texted back a thumbs up and a fire emoji. You did not move. You automated another $600 on the 1st of the month, and you wrote the number in the notebook, and you went to sleep. 120 months. That is how long you did this. From age 26 to age 36. 120 transfers. 121st of the months where the money moved before you could decide not to let it. Most of those months felt like nothing. That is the truth nobody puts in the story when they tell it later. It did not feel like building. It did not feel like progress. It felt like Tuesday. It felt like Wednesday. It felt like a number in a notebook that moved slowly in one direction while everything around you stayed exactly the same. And then one day it did not. The account crossed $400,000 on a Sunday. You were doing laundry. You saw the notification. You looked at it for maybe 4 seconds. You put the phone face down on top of the dryer. You listened to the machine finish its cycle. You moved the clothes to the dryer. You pressed start. That was it. No call. No text. No moment. And that is when something quietly unsettling moved through you. Not panic, not joy, just a question you had never thought to ask before. You had spent 10 years building toward a number. You had never once asked yourself what you were supposed to feel when you got there. The number kept growing. You kept feeling the same. Month after month the account climbed. $430,000. $480,000. $510,000. Each notification the same. Each morning after the same. Same desk. Same Civic. Same sandwich. Same Karen forwarding you articles you did not need. Nothing outside of you changed. Nothing inside of you changed either. And here is the part nobody prepares you for. You thought the feeling would come later. At $500,000. At $750,000. At $1 million. You kept moving the number forward in your head. Okay, not yet, but when it hits this next mark, then it will feel real. Then something will shift. Then you will know what to do with it. But the number kept moving. And you kept waiting. And one Wednesday morning in a grocery store on Reading Road, you looked at a notification that said $1,100,000, and you put the phone back in your pocket, and you picked up a box of oats. So now the question is not about the money. The question is about what comes after the money. And you are not sure anyone has ever told you the answer to that one. There is a woman named Celeste Okafor who ran a small accounting firm out of a rented office in Columbus, Ohio for 11 years. She had 7 clients when she started. She had 41 when she stopped counting. She drove to work every morning in a 2016 Honda Accord with 94,000 miles on it and a crack in the passenger side mirror she had been meaning to fix for 2 years. She brought her lunch in a blue cooler bag she bought at a Target for $12.99. She ate at her desk. Her family thought she was doing okay. Not great. Okay. Her cousin Marcus worked in real estate and made good money and drove a Lexus, and at every family gathering he talked about the market and opportunity and leverage, and Celeste would listen and nod and pass the bread and say nothing. At her mother's 65th birthday dinner, Marcus leaned over and told her he knew a guy who was hiring. Good benefits. Stable. He thought it might be a good fit for her. He said it the way people say things when they feel sorry for you, but want it to sound like help. Celeste said thank you. She passed the bread. She drove home that night in the Accord with the cracked mirror, and she sat in her driveway for a few minutes before going inside. She had $2,300,000 in a brokerage account. She had built it the same way you built yours. Slowly. Quietly. Without telling Marcus. Without telling anyone. She was not angry at Marcus. That is the thing. She was not performing patience. She genuinely did not need him to know. She had gotten to a place where the outside opinion had simply stopped mattering. Not because she had suppressed it, but because she had outlasted it. She had spent so many years making decisions with no external validation that eventually she stopped needing any. That is the thing about building in silence that nobody explains at the beginning. At the beginning, silence feels like hiding. It feels like shame. It feels like you are doing something you cannot talk about, because if you talk about it and it does not work, you will have to explain that too. But somewhere in the middle, and you cannot plan when this happens, it just happens. Silence stops feeling like hiding and starts feeling like protection. Like a wall you built not to keep people out, but to keep the noise out. The noise that tells you you are behind. The noise that tells you you are doing it wrong. The noise that tells you the Lexus means something. Right now, the average American household has less than $8,000 in liquid savings. That means most people are one missed paycheck away from a decision they do not want to make. And it means the ones who are quietly building something different are doing it completely alone. Because there is no one in their immediate life who is doing the same thing. No one to compare notes with. No one to confirm they are on the right track. You have to become someone who does not need that confirmation. Celeste became that person somewhere around year 6. She could not tell you exactly when. There was no moment. There was just a gradual quiet that settled in. A Tuesday that felt the same as the Tuesday before it, except that something underneath had shifted, and she could not name it until years later when she tried to explain it to someone and found she still could not find the right words. You know the feeling she was trying to describe. You felt it in a grocery store on a Wednesday morning with a box of oats in your hand and $1,100,000 on your phone screen, and nobody in the aisle looking up. You are not building toward a moment. You are building toward a version of yourself that does not need one. Darnell called on a Thursday in March. You saw his name on the screen, and you picked up the way you always picked up. Hey. And he said hey back, but the hey was different. You have known Darnell since you were 24 years old. You know what his voice sounds like when something is wrong. Something was wrong. He talked for a few minutes about nothing. Asked how you were doing. Asked about work. And then he got quiet in the way people get quiet when the thing they called to say is still sitting in their chest, and they are not sure how to move it to their mouth. You waited. He said he had been meaning to call for a while. He said things had been a little tough lately. He said he had left his job, and then he corrected himself. He said the job had left him. 3 weeks ago. He had not told his wife yet. He was going to tell her this weekend. He was calling you first because he did not know who else to call. He asked if you knew anyone hiring. You were sitting at your kitchen table. Your laptop was open in front of you. The brokerage account was on the screen because you had checked it that morning the way you still sometimes checked it. Not out of anxiety anymore, just out of habit. The number was there. $1,100,000. Sitting in the light of the screen. You looked at it. You closed the laptop. You told Darnell you would ask around. You told him things had a way of working out. You told him to call you after he talked to his wife. You told him you were glad he called. You did not tell him what was on that screen. The call ended. The kitchen was quiet. Outside a car went past on the street, and then it was quiet again. You sat with the phone in your hand, and you looked at the closed laptop, and you stayed there for a long time. Not moving. 9:17 a.m. You still have the notebook. Blue cover. College ruled. The first entry is from March 11 years ago. $28,400 salary. $387 rent. $194 insurance. $128 loan. The handwriting is smaller than your handwriting now, tighter, like it was trying to take up less space on the page. You found it in a box last winter when you were looking for something else. You sat on the floor of the closet and you read it for a while. Every number you wrote down in that apartment on Colerain Avenue. Every Tuesday. Every Wednesday. Every month where the leftover number was $214 or $180 or $303. Darnell's name is in there twice. Once when he lent you $40 for groceries in October. Once when you paid him back in November. You closed the notebook and put it back in the box. You went to the kitchen and made coffee. The account was at $1,100,000. The notebook was in the closet. Darnell was somewhere telling his wife something hard. Sandra was going to call on Sunday and ask if you were eating enough. Nothing about any of this is what you thought it would look like. The knowing does not make Thursday easier. You have the number. You have the silence. You have a notebook in a box in a closet with 11 years of Tuesdays in it. What you do not have, what you have never had, is the answer to the question that was always underneath all of it. Who are you building this for? The kitchen is quiet. The coffee is done. Outside the same street, the same cars, the same morning that looks like every other morning. You pour the coffee. You do not answer the question. Not thinking exactly. Just sitting with something that had no name.